Hey friends, David Schimmel here. Today I'm going to show you some basic music theory concepts to help you introduce harmonies and melodies into your productions, adding drama and emotion while also giving your listeners something to sing along to. We'll also cover some Ableton MIDI effects to give you some guardrails to keep you safe while you're exploring these concepts, so let's get into it. To start off our melodic progressive house song, I've created a basic kick and shaker loop, which sounds like this. As usual, we'll need to add some bass to this, but to really make our melody shine, we'll want to embed it in a colorful, emotional harmonic context, which we'll accomplish by creating a chord progression. But how do we know which chords, or for that matter, which bass notes to choose? Enter the circle of fifths, and no, I'm not talking about alcohol. A fifth is an interval between two notes that are exactly 7 half steps apart. The circle of fifths arranges each of the 12 notes in an octave so that the notes that are a fifth apart are next to each other. So if we go clockwise around the circle, we go up by a fifth, and if we go counterclockwise, we go down by a fifth. Now each of these 12 notes has a major and minor scale associated with it, and a scale is simply a sequence of notes that progresses through an octave until you get back to your starting note. So what's special about two keys that are a fifth apart? It means that their major and minor scales share 6 of 7 notes in common. So harmonically speaking, it means they are close to each other. You can transition between such keys and it will sound very smooth to the listener. So how do we use this information? Let's say our song is in the key of C major. If we look at this wedge of 6 chords, which includes C and its immediate neighbors, we can say that they are diatonic to the key of C major, meaning they only use notes that are within the key of C major. So we can safely use any of these 6 chords in our C major song, and they'll sound decent. Now you may be wondering, if there are 7 notes in a major or minor scale, how come there aren't 7 chords? Well, there is a 7th chord called the diminished chord, which isn't pictured here and which I'm omitting for simplicity. So how do we construct these chords? I'm going to use an example chord progression that's been used in thousands of songs, including such hits as Poker Face by Lady Gaga. I'll choose the key of G minor, so looking at the G minor wedge, I have these 6 chords to choose from. And for our chord progression here, I'll choose G minor, E flat, B flat, F, and then back to G minor. So we'll open up Ableton here, and to build these chords, you first start off by adding the root of the chord, which is just its name. So in our case, it would be G for G minor. Then select that note, press Ctrl C to copy it, and we'll add the 5th of the chord here by going up 7 half steps. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and paste your root back into place. Then for a minor chord, to add the 3rd, we go up by 3 half steps. So 1, 2, 3, paste. And that sounds like this. Beautiful. Let's keep going with our 2nd chord, an E flat major. So first let's set the root, which is D sharp, same note as E flat. Then we'll add the 5th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we'll add the 3rd. So for a major chord, you want to go up 4 half steps. So 1, 2, 3, 4, paste. That sounds like this. All right, let's keep going with our B flat chord. So start with a B flat or A sharp. Those are the same notes. Add the 5th. And add the major 3rd. 1, 2, 3, 4. And one more chord, our F major. So draw in an F. Add the 5th. And add the major 3rd. 4. Here's what that sounds like together. Now you may have noticed that the chords sound kind of jumpy right now, right? They're going up, down, up, down. They're going all over the place. This can be okay in some circumstances, but usually for chords that are in the background, we want a smooth, unobtrusive sound that doesn't detract from the main melody that we want our listeners to focus on. So we can smooth things out by using what are called inversions. An inversion is simply a different arrangement of notes in a chord. So instead of having the root note at the bottom, maybe you would have the third or the fifth. So I'm going to select this D sharp or E flat note in our second chord, hold down Shift and press the up arrow key to move it up an octave. Now I'm going to select the top note from our B flat chord and move it down an octave. So hold Shift and press down. So now the notes of our chords are much closer together throughout the measure, and that sounds like this. It's much gentler, and you can see the stepwise motion of the highest voice in the chord, creating a nice simple melodic element that can be a contrast or complement to our main theme. Now for bass, we're just going to play the notes that are in the name of each chord. So for our G minor chord, we'll play a G. And then for our E flat chord, we'll play an E flat or D sharp as it's also called. Then we'll go up to B flat or A sharp right here. And finally we'll end on F. And that altogether that sounds like this. Now let's add a melody to our song. But how do we know which notes will sound good over our chord progression? One approach is to just play notes that are in the key of our song, in this case G minor. But how do we know which notes belong to G minor? Well, of course you can always look it up, but a foolproof approach is to use Ableton's scale effect. The scale effect is kind of like auto-tune but for MIDI. It remaps each of the 12 notes in an octave so that they conform to the limited set of notes in a particular scale. So the way to use it is open up your channel that's got your lead sound on it, then go to the MIDI effects category in the side panel, type in scale, expand it so you can see all the different scale presets, and click and drag the one called minor so that it's just in front of your VST. Since we're in G minor, we'll want to change the bass parameter to G. And now I can play any of the 12 notes in an octave and they'll always instead play a note that's in G minor. So listen to that. Now that we've got our guardrails up, let's try playing a melody. You might recognize this one. Here we go. All right, that sounds pretty good. But if we look at our MIDI clip, we can see that not all of the notes, in fact, most of them aren't exactly on the grid. And this can be okay in some circumstances where you want a more human or organic feel, but if you push it too far, it starts to just sound like it's uncoordinated. So we'll use one final trick called quantization to really tighten up our rhythm. Quantize is kind of like auto-tune, but for rhythm. So it will conform the start and end times of your notes so that they line up perfectly on the grid. So what we're going to do is press Ctrl A to select all of our notes, then press Ctrl Shift U to bring up the quantize dialog. You can quantize to the current grid of your clip or some other rhythmic resolution. You can choose whether to adjust the start and end times of the notes or leave them alone. And you can control the amount of quantization, which is how much Ableton will push the notes onto the grid. 100% meaning it will put it exactly on the grid. So let's go with this and hear how that sounds. Okay, so we got most of the way there, but some of these notes were kind of in the middle of 2/16 notes, and Ableton pushed them a little too far in the direction we didn't want. So you'll often have to do some manual fine-tuning to the quantization. So we'll go in here, take this note, move it over, move this note over. What else do we got? This note, move it over, and then shorten this one. So let's hear how that sounds. Beautiful. So now you know enough music theory to get you started on your journey into melody and harmony. Along the way, we covered the circle of fifths, chord construction and inversion, Ableton scale effect, and its rhythm quantization feature. If you've enjoyed our time here together, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you here next time. Happy producing!